Welcome to Radio Fixer's channel. Subscribe for upcoming videos. Before we get started, I want to bring to your attention that some of my subscribers contacted me and mentioned that they are not receiving a notification when I upload new videos. I'm not sure if you know it or not. As YouTube a while ago changed the process of subscription, they made it more difficult for user. So here, as you see my screen, it shows subscribe. So yours, if it's like this and the bell is not on, you're not going to get notification. So use the drop down here and select all. From here on, YouTube will send you notification when I upload new videos. Also, meanwhile you're here, I try to make this as simple as possible. You can search videos, all the videos here, or playlist. There is a categories that you can go there and see. It depends what you are interested. You're interested to fabricate part. Whatever it is, I categorize this to be easier for you to find a video. Hopefully this will help you. I highly suggest to review part 1 to this repair series, where we discuss how to repair this beautiful Zenith radio to as close to as original without staining the cabinet. Alright, this is the chassis. As you see, it's very dirty as well. Dust all over it. So I'm going to clean this very well outside and be able to take it back to my work area. And rain start getting closer. It's better be quick to clean this. See, it's very dirty, as you can see. Alright, let's work on this chassis. You see, I just noticed it's like a plastic and it's bended. Hopefully I can fix this, or I need to recreate one. So that's one of the things I need to take care of. Let's look quickly through the chassis to see how everything is. The good thing about this radio is it has all the parts, so that is very good. If there is a part missing, then it's very hard to find those parts, but this radio has everything. That was one of the reasons I was interested in this radio. After looking at it, I saw it has everything, all the parts there already. That's very encouraging, to find a radio that has all original parts. This is the first time I'm looking at on the chassis or this radio. It's pretty interesting the way they build this. As I mentioned in my other videos regarding Zenith, they used to build such a great quality of the product. So see, it seems like there is just a bunch of capacitors that need to be replaced. They're all over. But before doing that, I'm going to take all the tubes out. Then I'm going to test the power transformer, make sure that is fine, and then if that is okay, I'm going to pursue with restoration. So let me start taking the tubes out, document all the tube locations, so later on I remember how to put them together, and start checking the power transformer. To save time on this video, please review how to test power transformer on tube radio on my channel, where I discuss step by step how successfully test this radio transformer. Alright, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take this out because this is loose sitting here. When I take it out of the chassis, in the front it has a couple of screws was hooked up to the chassis, but when I removed it, of course now it's loose, so I don't want to keep falling off. Gently just pull it out, it comes out like that. All these wires are falling apart. Those years they were unbelievable building quality product, but insulation wires, they had issue with them. All the insulation, which is plastic, is coming off. If it's the cloth, it lasts forever. But if it's not cloth like this, majority of them need to be replaced. As you see, when I touch it, it's falling apart. Let's put this unit aside so it does not get damaged. Since this is just a cardboard around it, believe it or not, these are all cardboard. Okay? As you see, I'm documenting the tube location and also documenting where the cover goes around the tube. There's one here, here and here as well. And of course they have a center tap connection all here. So I just documented for later on. I know where everything goes. And this is what I was talking about. You see how it comes, that goes to the center of the tube. Some of them, again, it has tube cover, and some they do not have it. That's why I was marking them, so later on I know. You just always hold the bottom to the base, not the top. You know, the bottom. Then I start moving it around like that. Okay, it comes out. Of course, this is Zenith, and I need to find what type of tube is this. It says right here 6F6G. As you know, this model of tube, they call them G. So to remove this, first you need to release this. Again, do not yank it. Just get this twisted a little bit, then pull it up. Be gentle. See it twisted like that, then gently pull it out. Again, because the top here is the metal, is glued to the tube, so if this is rust out to that, you have to use some type of thing to remove the rust. You do not want to pop that out. After removing the wire, then of course the shield, twist it. You don't pull it. Some of them you pull out, not this one. You twist it to the this way, then you lift it up like that. See, so that's how you take it out. All right, let me take this out. Again, hold the bottom, and sometimes you can put a screwdriver underneath, but very, very gentle. You don't crack anything. Be very gentle, just a little bit at a time. You don't want to break the pen or this bakelite. Just a little bit to loosen it up. See, now it loosened up. Hold the bottom, it comes out much easier. Be very careful you don't break this. All right, so I'm going to use the same concept again to remove all the tubes. All right, what I did to clean the chassis, this is just cleaning. I use this product 409, you know, a spray and the paper towel, not directly here, right? So I sprayed it and then cleaned it pretty well. After everything is cleaned, then I use this wax, you know, just to wax it, just the top. Now it's pretty clean. I didn't want those dust get everywhere. I purchased this book many years ago from eBay. It's a good thing to have. If you find something like this, definitely purchase it. It will help you out. I'm using this book since this schematic does not identify the pen location for the tube that I am checking. So the good thing about this book is, I already marked it here to show you. You see, this is the tube I have, 6x5. Here it shows all the pens. So the plates, as you see, these are two plates, is a pen number 3 and pen number 5, and it identifies this is the first plate, this is the second plate. If you don't have a book like this, you always can Google it and you find, you know, your tube and pen location. But again, this is a good book to have. If you can't find something like this, you know, buy it because it will help you. I use this book all the time to, you know, find out which pen is a plate, which pen, you know, is a heater. And so those are really important to know. All right. As I mentioned earlier, this was, as you can tell, is damaged, all it bent. I'm thinking because it was in some type of attic or something like that, that is this plastic actually bent, as you can tell. So I need to create something like that later on. I need to duplicate something like that for this radio. So what I did, I sprayed it with this. Since it was rust out right here, but here was sitting here is all rust out, as you can tell. I had to remove this, which is a 4 screws. There's 2 here, and of course 2 of them was here. I had to remove that. I removed the pilot lights, and then try to take this out. See, in the process, this piece broke off. It was bad anyhow. It's all rust out, as you see. I used this again to a spray here. It was totally frozen. You have to be very careful. If you try to force it, you're going to break this. So you have to spray it here, spray all here. So after it set for a while, now you see it actually works. See that? Both sides work. Here it was totally frozen. So I'm going to lubricate it with this all here and here. Make sure this does not freeze up again. Again, you want to test all those things. You don't want to start turning things around. You're going to break it. Just add in some lubricant here to make sure this does not freeze again. Now, as you see, it's working very well. Of course, this pad was here. I removed it. It was sitting right here. Let me remove that rust over there. Use some sandpaper. Clean it up pretty good. I'm going to take a picture so you see how bad it was. I just noticed this Zenith radio. It has television. Of course, here is a radio. This says television. I don't know how that works. That is very interesting. This is the first radio I see something like that. Very interesting. It seems like this is going to be a simple one to do, I hope. It seems like there's just bunch of capacitors that need to be replaced. Another capacitor here, and one big one is back there. That's a multi-capacitor back there. This one, I need to figure out what is this one. Is it broken? It's like a leather, believe it or not. This is for tuning dial that it broke off. This is like a belt, so it broke off. So I need to figure out what to do about that. You know, those two capacitors under the chassis are stamped, so I take them out, I drill them out. As you see, I put a hole through here. Now I'm able to get to the capacitor, because before I could not remove them. Let me show you other side. See, this is the capacitor that I was talking about. Now I loosened up, and before was stamped into the chassis, as I mentioned. Now the capacitor is released, so I can cut the line and put a new one right here. This type of tool is really helpful to do this type of work. Okay, that's one side. I'm also documenting this to remember where everything goes. So the other side of capacitor is hooked up right here to this resistor. Alright, the capacitor is out. It's very dirty. I cannot even read to see what size it is. So the best way to do this, to be able to see it, get a lighter like this, heat it up a little bit. See, by this way you're going to remove some of the wax to be able to see what size of capacitor this is. Alright, this capacitor is not showing what type of capacitor this is because there is no value for microfarad or voltage on this capacitor. Here, as you see, it shows part number 22-719. Let's check the schematic chart to see what type of capacitor this is. Here the schematic shows that it's a 16 microfarad 350 volts. Since this is a large capacitor, so my assumption is going to be electrolytic capacitor. I'm going to replace it anyhow, but let's just test it. I want to see how off it is. Wow, look how bad it is. 8 NF is supposed to be 16 microfarad. Now you see why the capacitors need to be replaced in old radios. As I mentioned earlier, everything in this radio is original. Nothing is changed, you know. All the capacitors are Zenith and they all are original. So nobody touched this chassis, which is a good thing. I prefer that way. Alright, that capacitor in the back, I already released it. As you see, it's moving. I'm going to cut these wires, electrolytic capacitors. I see there's two of them inside here, and one was, of course, as what we discussed earlier, is right here. This is also electrolytic capacitors need to be replaced. All right, I just cut the wires. As you see, it has a part number at the top. One section is a 6 microfarad, 450 volts. Another is 16 microfarad, 450. And that's the part number of it, 22933F. The interesting about this capacitor is they put tar inside. It's not a beeswax, as you see, it's very dark. Start taking it out. But then the other capacitor, you see they use a beeswax. So this one is a beeswax, this is a tar. And so I need to remove all this tar, take the capacitor, everything out, then install the new capacitor inside here, because I want to keep it as original as possible. Alright, I remove all the tar out, so I put a screw inside the capacitors. I'm using a cheap soldering iron. Heat up the capacitor. Always wear gloves, of course, because this gets hot. Then I'm getting a plier, pulling this thing out. See it start coming out. Alright, and that's the easiest way to take these things out. Alright, I'm going to save this, put a new capacitor inside, as I mentioned. That is how capacitor was made. See if I unwrap this. This is all aluminum foil and it's totally dried inside. And some type of chemical between them. Just want to show you how the inside look like. See, like that. See, all is messed up. That's why we need to change capacitor, folks. Alright, let's focus on replacing all these capacitors, all these paper capacitors. As you see, there's a bunch of them here. Some of them are easy to get to, some of them they're pretty hard. Some, is all the way underneath, so I need to figure out what to do. I don't want to remove any parts, unless I have to get to those capacitors. Now what I will do, I'm going to replace one at a time. If you're a brand new person doing this and you do this as a hobby, make sure to replace them one at a time. You do not want to remove a bunch of them at the same time, but they may going to get so confusing. Even I take a bunch of documents, still I replace one at a time. Unless, like this one up here, I don't know if you can see it or not, there's a couple of them underneath each other, so I have to remove maybe the top one first and then replace the bottom, then replace the second. The way I do it, I usually cut one side, lift it up, document, take some pictures. Again, it's pretty important to do that. Believe me, if you're doing this as a hobby, and if you don't follow this, replacing one at a time, you're going to be challenged. I don't know about you, it's so hard to remember all of this, where they go. Alright, let's make it started working on this. It's always a good idea to test a new capacitor. You don't want to install them, then later on find out that maybe they was bad. Alright, as you notice, I start changing this capacitor. I start from easy side. The hardest, of course, is going to be there, which I need to figure out without removing any parts. How can I get to it? I give you example, was planning to test these two resistors. Sometime when capacitors, when it hooked up to it, is hard to measure. It might give you a wrong reading. So after remove that capacitor, now I can test the resistor. So let's hook it up. So we're going to test one at a time. Let's see what it's telling us. You see, it's 1.1 meg. it can be off 20%. This is perfectly fine. And the other one also we want to test, so I remove it from one other side to others, and here 1.1 as well. So those two resistors are fine. Now I can install this capacitor there. So that's what I do, you know. I usually start from one side, change one capacitor. Meanwhile, I'm going back, also test all the resistors to make sure they're okay. Because you want to double check resistor. If resistor is bad, you're going to cause issues down the road. So it depends of the radio. Sometimes I go back and I clean all the pins and reinstall the capacitors if there is not that many wires hooked up to the same pin. But sometimes, you know, it is best you don't touch those at all, because it might cause an issue, especially these wires are getting old and it can crack and cause damage. So to give you example, right here you see I cut the old capacitor off, but I leave good amount of old wire here. Same thing the other side, that I can solder the part to. See, there's too many things going here. I don't want to really touch any of this, so sometimes that's what I do. So you can get a marker like this. I want to see the distance between that, how much space I have. I mark it. So one is going to be around here, another going to be around here. So you see I mark this capacitor. Now I know where I need to start making that pigtail. And sometimes, you know, the capacitor is going to be very close to other parts, so you need to protect the leads that they're going to be exposed. So I'm using this shrink tube, cut the size. The reason I mark it so I know how much the shrink tube I need to cut. So I'm going to protect this. Then this technique called pigtail. So you get a small screwdriver like this. I showed this in my other videos as well. I suggest pretty highly to go watch the others because I go through a lot of detail. So you just turn this around the screws like this, a screwdriver like that. Of course, in the ends is so sharp, you're gonna just use this so you don't poke yourself. Okay. So this is how it look like. You see as a pigtail both side. So I already pre-fit this here to make sure the bands and everything is fine. After I make sure this is exactly fit there perfect, I'm going to use this flux. I'm pretty happy with this flux. It's a good brand. I bought it from Amazon. It's made in the United States. Put a little of flux in it. There's a pocket inside. That's all I do, right? The reason I do this in advance is much easier to do it this way, you know. So now I'm going to fit it here. Of course, next I'm going to solder. Really, that's all you need to do is start changing this one at a time. As I mentioned in the past, usually I like to install the new capacitor inside the old one, then installing them, but there is not enough space here. If I want to do that, I have to remove a bunch of wires around. And so I decided not to use that technique. But majority of my radio I installed the original, but not this one, especially over there is so hard to get to. Trying to video and doing this is much harder. Sometimes if this area is very hard to reach, I just put here solder on the solder gun, then go over here and let it melt. See, I can add a little more if the area is hard to reach. Of course, this is easy to reach, as I'm showing you another technique for soldering. Okay, let's see, that's done. Just going to solder the other side. I use the same technique and start again, changing one at a time. Hopefully this helps you with your project. At this time, I want to take the opportunity and thank my subscribers with their uplifting comment. You always encourage me to upload more videos, since this is just a hobby of mine. Again, I appreciate you. Enjoy all these videos, and you all have an awesome day. Take care. If you're interested to see more videos like this, feel free to subscribe to my channel, and you will be notified when new video being uploaded. You have a great day.